Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Chapters on Armstrong Television. Chapters is a show that profiles authors, editors, publishers in the tri-state area of Huntington, Ashland, Southern Ohio, all those various states that make up the Appalachian region of the tri-state. And today our guests are from this area, but they do not live here any longer. So with the advent of Zoom, we're able to bring somebody to us from England and from, I believe it's Virginia. So I want to introduce you all to our guests, John Neyer and Steve Eggleston. Those names are probably familiar to people in the Ashland, Kentucky area because that's where they're from. John Nyer is a third-generation native of Ashland. His father was an OB/GYN doctor and his mother was trained as a nurse. He studied at VCU in Richmond, Virginia for 2 years and then the University of Kentucky for 1.5. He's had a varied career from training Arabian horses in the United States and Brazil to working as an investigator and partner with Steve Eggleston in his law firm in San Francisco and at the beginning of Eggman Global Agency. Today's passions are social justice, memoirs, and photography, as well as volunteering for Swim Across America, raising money to fund research for childhood cancer and blood diseases. He currently lives in Decatur, Georgia. Steve Eggleston is also a native of Ashland, but he left home many years before that and worked his way through college and law school. He attended the University of Kentucky, received his BS in political science from the University of Maryland in 1978, and graduated from Lincoln Law School in Sacramento, California in 1982 as the valedictorian and editor of the Law Review. He practiced law in California from 82 to 2000 when he left that field and took off for Hollywood, where he began work as a producer and writing movie scripts. He was also president and chief operating officer of Vegas Rocks Magazine and Media and has booked over 1,000 live shows. For decades, he's been collaborating on books and other publications. He and his family make their home in Somerset, England. And if you want to know more about either of these guys, then there is lots more. You can check out their websites. They are together now and have written a collaboration of a novel called Conflicted, a Tripp Splatter novel. That's the first novel, I guess, that they have written together. And it's certainly Steve's first novel, but not his first book by any stretch. And he has multiple more novels in the works. So we're delighted to have you both, and I can't wait to hear how this all came together. I know you all have been lifelong friends, and you've both had amazing lives, and we could spend the whole half hour talking about that. But let's focus on the book. What made you decide to write this, and whose idea was it?
Well, maybe I'll start with that one. The germ of the idea has absolutely nothing with the final book. It actually, it was one of those situations where I had a house. I was practicing lawyer, lived in Sausalito, which is right next to San Francisco, across the Golden Gate Bridge, and in the middle of the night, my brother was staying with me. John, I don't know if you were staying there at the time, but if you were in the area, you may have been staying there as well.
Yeah.
And we may have a slightly different take on this because the book had such a long history. But I was sleeping on the couch one night downstairs, and I'm right on the cliffs in Sausalito there, and this enormous racket took place outside the front door. I thought that maybe two wildcats had just caught up together, and I was scared for a minute and opened the door and looked out, and there were two male raccoons fighting, and out of that grew this legal thriller.
Oh, that's
I certainly remember
ahead,
working on the beginnings of it down at this little Italian restaurant around the corner, and we'd go down there and they had the paper coverings on their tables, and so about every other night Steve and I go down there, and I think we had about 50 table covers, by the end of it, with a story arc and trying to come up with some of the characters. But the Tripp Splatter character changed a lot from what we began as, and Steve is really the guy that put the character to him, and making him the half breed and coming from and bringing a lot of the Chinese portion of the story into it.
Mm-hmm. How did
it's not that crazy that books or movies start in a bizarre way. And I have one example quick. I remember reading about, you remember the movie Good Will Hunting?
Yeah.
Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. They're two guys from Boston, from Southie or whatever. And I remember reading about their story. And what they would do is they would drive from Boston to Hollywood working on a script. And this is the script that was going to launch their career. The script started as a bunch of guys from Southie, Boston, saving the world from invading aliens. Of course, if you've ever seen Good Will Hunting, of course, most people have, it has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with that. And I'm going to say this story started off almost as distant from the final thing, but that's just to keep authors and people in mind that these stories don't. It's not like a design of a house and you design a story and then you just put all the walls and such together in the wood. It's just not like that most of the time, I don't think.
No, I think you're right. So John says you came up with the nuances of the character Tripp Splatter. First of all, the name is almost comical when you first think about it. It's like, somebody falls down and splat, everything goes all over the walls. Where did you come up with that name?
I was looking for something different. I'm not even completely sure. I wanted an absurd name that would just catch everybody's attention. I was in a writing group at the time with some people that have become pretty big guys, David Spieselberg and so forth. And when I came up with that name, the way the groups worked is traditional way. You write a bit and share it, and then everybody would give their critique. And every single person said, "Well, you got to get rid of the first 60 pages, and because it was too much backstory, and you got to get rid of this name, Tripp Splatter, Dave Tripp Splatter." But I have to say, I don't know what I was reading, some saying from somebody or some other book. And the idea was if you create a unique name and a unique character and you get lucky, it could make a huge difference. And I found out that many people, and I don't know about yourself or everybody, but many people love it, that they ended up being one of the things that endeared them to it. So
yeah,
you never know.
So tell us a little bit about, give somebody, one of you give sort of a quick synopsis of the story without giving away, you obviously don't want to give away at the end, but no spoiler alerts.
Should I do that, or John? Or
yeah, go ahead, Steve. Yeah, I think you've repeated it enough times that
Well, I have to be careful of the spoiler alert because no one who's ever read the book has ever told me that they guessed who did it.
No, I didn't.
So I have to be very careful. So the book was conceived of the idea of a lawyer who defends his own brother from killing his own law partner. And that's the way the book was originally written, with the lawyer as the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a legal thriller about that, but told from the perspective of the lawyer's best friend and detective, who is the Tripp Splatter that John LeScraw thought was just phenomenal and called me about. I mean, here's a guy with 15, now 20 bestsellers. I got the book to him through Peter Miller, and he actually gave me a call and said, "Steve, well done with keeping that name. But other than that, that's a pretty decent setup, right? So and thus the word conflicted that goes with the whole thing."
Right. Okay. That sounds interesting. Did you all write? Well, you said you used the tabletop, so I guess the answer to this is it's a moot question. You did not outline it and then write it. It clearly was a convoluted story that kind of led you down the path as you wrote. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because see, this book ended up being the third or fourth incarnation of the story.
Mm-hmm.
The first time it was in third person, typical legal thriller, John Grisham kind of book. Third person, past tense, with the lawyer as the protagonist. That, when it was done, just didn't seem exciting enough.
Mhm.
So switched it to first person, past tense from the lawyer's viewpoint. Still didn't seem good. Switched it from that. I said, all right, what if we make the detective the main guy? Now that's a big rewrite.
Yes, it
That's
is.
a big rewrite. And not only that, what if we make it present tense, even progressive? And so the story did all of that. And then one of the big secrets that I'll reveal that won't really tell you anything is that the book was completely re-edited and rewritten or relayered when the person who did it was determined, because that person wasn't determined until after the book was written.
Oh, wow.
So then it was completely redone so that you will never know
Mhm.
that that happened. But a
Yeah.
lot of books, again, I'm a big fan of Stephen King. So he says, well, he plots ahead 2,000 words and he doesn't even plot ahead that. And then he lets the book write itself. So this one truly did that, as John will know, because I did the principal writing, but John was involved in reading this thing from the very beginning and always had his input and so forth. And he has gone on a labyrinthical ride on this
Right.
thing.
I mean, in the beginning, we'd gone up to on top of the hill just over Golden Gate Bridge. And we were up there one day and we heard this just beautiful sound coming out, from the hillside someplace. And we went over there and walked in, and they've got these tunnels that the military had built through there to, get manufactured. It's a fort. There was, back in the days. And so they've got these long concrete tunnels, and they get a group of people that come up there and they sing in these tunnels. And they use reverberation, and on a foggy day in San Francisco, this just had such an ethereal sound. So I think in the beginning we were trying to incorporate a lot more about Sausalito and kind of that area. It really started out as more of a book about that area, and then of course, we lived in Sausalito, but office was in San Francisco on Market Street, and so it's really, when he talks about changing it,
Yeah.
we brought in characters and they didn't work, and brought in scenes and they didn't work. So it's always been a journey, and neither one of us had written a novel, so it was a learning experience and a lot of fun too.
All right, so you both were living in the San Francisco area then when you wrote this, not one in England and one in Decatur.
No, it wasn't really that way at all. I mean, well, we originally, the idea came up, this is in the year 2000 2000. And then John moved and I moved, and I originally wrote this as a script when I was in Hollywood.
Mhm.
And we had a friend, Paul Arato, he's deceased since then, but I was also representing him as a lawyer. And he said, Stevie, put the script down and write a book, because only 60 films get made every year or whatever. He said, this is nuts, because he'd been in the film business for years. And I was representing him on a legal case over the rights of Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, that he had produced the movie in 77. And so when I was in Las Vegas, when I moved from there to Las Vegas, I actually started writing as a book, which changed everything, because the script is probably more like Good Will Hunting than the book is. like
Actually, the first rendition of it was you turned it into a class for Jimmy D'Alessandro, that screenwriting class we were taking in.
Yeah, might have.
Fort Mason.
Yeah, oh, you mean as a script?
Yeah, as a script. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means then
I forgot about that completely.
So then that means that you all did a lot of the collaboration via email and so forth, and on the phone.
Oh yes.
Yeah, basically I would do the writing and then send it to John.
Mm-hmm.
John would give his input, and it was over a long period of time. The book came together at the end, though, with all these last rewrites in 2013, 2014. And that's when it was originally published. And Peter Miller, who's a very famous literary manager, over 1,500 books, from Helter Skelter to just every kind of book in the world. He put it on his vanity imprint when they did the White Glove program. You may remember that, when Amazon was doing the White Glove program, and he got cancer that year, and the program was a disaster anyway. So
Oh,
this book had a very weird start, which is why, and on the original edition, it was just me, but then I brought John in to help me bring it out a second time.
I see.
And thus it's coming out new, and it's been updated and made current, which
Mhm.
I think, by the way, a lot of books could be done that had a very minimal release in the old days,
Mhm.
and today you could update them, put some new elements in them, and release them as an exciting new book, with Amazon and so forth.
Right. John, describe Tripp Splatter to us.
Tripp Splatter's he's like I said, a half bred Chinese American. He never knew his father, so basically we'd call him a bastard. But he grew up on the streets of Chinatown, and he was involved in some of the gangland, activities. He certainly did things like sell firecrackers and all of that. And so he is, he's a kid of both worlds. Nobody accepted him. His mother was gone. He was, adopted by a foster home, and really a pretty sad coming up. And so whenever they're in high school, I guess they, all of a sudden, Hammer starts showing up, and the attorney, and I'm not sure how we describe it in the book is how they became friends, but all of a sudden they were, and his parents took a interest in Tripp, and so they spent a lot of time together in the high school time.
Mhm.
And then after that, he went on and started working for him as a private investigator after Stephen gone through law school, or Jack Hammer gone through law school, so that's the way it kind of came about. He's a very colorful character. He's a very he's driven by some of his addictions. He's he also tries to be a good person. He's got a relative moral code that he sticks by anyways. Whether it fits right into all of society, I don't know is exactly correct, but he does have something. He does have aspirations.
And yet he's also drawn to disguises, and he is a bit of a self-mutilator, which is a real, makes him a very conflicted character, as you will. Even
Yes.
the title is apt to the novel as well as to his character, I think. Um,
On many levels, I think
Yeah.
there's the conflicts are really everywhere, aren't they?
yes.
And the answer to the last question, if you really further got into it, could get you to the answer of the book too. So one has to be very careful.
Right,
You
exactly.
get into these books with twists and lots of other twists.
Yes, exactly. Um, Steve, how do you work with, and it's obviously easy in a way to work with a friend, somebody whose judgment you trust and, who you've known for a long time and so forth. But when you collaborate with other authors on books, how does that work?
Well, it depends a lot on how it comes about. I do a lot of books with a lot of other authors. I've probably got 15 right now in play, where I'm playing a different role on almost all of the books, sort of like a dial. So on some of them, I do 90% of the writing, but I have someone who edits me,
Mhm.
who can get outside the trees and and sort of see it from the bird's eye. A lot of times I'll have somebody who will write the book, and then I'll do the story structure overview or the character overview, really serving as sort of a publisher. We have a way that we do it using recording devices and different things like that, where we interview the people, do a lot of memoirs, a lot of nonfiction.
Mhm.
And then on the novels, they're quite different than nonfiction, of course. So those are two different ways. But then what we do is by recording all the different chapters, say in a memoir, then all of those recorded, transcribed interviews can go on to paper,
Mhm.
and one person or another, if it's not me, it'll be somebody else. They'll sort of start to put it together, and then I'll take it from there And then sometimes I do it all myself, so it varies. But I collaborate now on almost every book I do. Not all. I've got a couple, just got one coming out that's just me, but really almost every book I collaborate on.
Well, back to Tripp Splatter, it says as the subtitle, a Tripp Splatter novel. Does that mean there will be more?
Well, the aspiration was originally that it would sort of be like a Perry Mason kind of thing, where Tripp would go on and solve all sorts of problems and be in different situations and actually hang his own shingle up as a private investigator. So there's several books in the works. The thing is, how do you make money unless you're a superstar? With the book? So you have to allocate, the truth is you have to really allocate your time between writing your own stuff when we do very well as a writing agency, and people hire us to do their books at a very high level. So when we work on the conflicted sequels, and it didn't get the right launch the first time, we thought, okay, let's launch this one correctly the first time. Get it out there now, and I'm glad because it's been updated to be current. Now, if once we get this out a little bit, I'm hoping we can find the time between all the stuff we have going on, and we have a lot of stories and books. John's working on one right now with me, another one, and he's got a couple more in the works. So where do you find that time?
Yeah, exactly.
But the answer is we have aspirations to do it. We'd love a great advance from some big then you'd see them come out every 2 months almost.
Yeah, that's right. You just don't see that anymore in the publishing world, unless you are, like Steve said, a superstar.
Right. But your all's work with the global agency, Eggman Global, that must give you a lot of ideas for stories that you could use. Is that correct?
Oh, it does. And not only that, we do an international marketing campaign. So for every book that we sign, we look at 20. Yeah. And everybody's, a lot of these are true stories, but still, just life is stranger than fiction, hands down, no question about it.
Yeah.
And you just would never guess what people encounter and what they go through. Really quite remarkable stuff.
And what they're willing to write about.
Many of them, it's there's that quote from Maya Angelou. There's about what is it? It's there's nothing more painful than the untold story inside of you, or whatever it is, and that is so true for people who have undergone hardship or injustice or something that they just feel they have to speak about, and that's the primary person that wants to get a book written. Absolutely. Other than big people who have just lived a full life and they want to see their legacy told.
Mm-hmm. John, are you still swimming? I understand you're a
since COVID came around, I've not been in the pool a lot because the closest pool I have is an indoor pool, and I'm just not over that hump yet. So, exactly. But hope to get back to it. I run some, but and we did not have our event that was supposed to be in September this year, an outdoor swim, and so yeah, hoping to get back to it as soon as I start feeling confident. Sounds like we're getting this vaccine out here, so I suppose by spring I'll take the plunge again.
Well, the Atlanta Marathon's coming up in February. You can train for that.
The what?
The Atlanta Marathon.
Oh no, I don't. My roommate actually does. She's a big time runner, but
I ran it.
If I can get down 2 miles with my knees and my stuff, I'm okay.
I ran it, but it's been a number of years ago.
Oh really?
Really?
Yeah. That's a big accomplishment.
I've run 3. Yeah. That one in Marine Corps in New York City.
It's amazing. I've done 3, but I did not finish one of them.
Oh, no, I finished. I'm not going to tell you my time, but I finished.
Oh, I'm not going to tell you my time, even though I finished it 2. The one I did, I did finish it, but I was in Dublin, and I said, I was with Stacy, who John knows, and she was a runner, and I cut off 3 miles and stopped at the pub. And so that when she came around that bend, because she was fast, I'm sitting there having a drink and said, I've been here for 2 minutes. Where are you? I put the thing down and I made my way in, but it was a
Yeah,
rough trip from that beer forward. I should
that
not
it
even have
was.
taken
Yeah,
a
you
sip.
don't stop in the middle. You're doomed if you do.
Have a
Right.
pint. You don't have a Guinness in the middle.
No, not
Mm.
exactly. Right. Um, would you ever consider setting a novel in Ashland, Kentucky?
Yes, I'm doing a book right now with a lady who lives in Ashland, right 2 houses, 3 houses down from my grandmother's house at 1301. It is a true story, but it's set in Ashland,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an incredible story because she didn't know who her father was.
Oh, wow.
And without going into any detail, the story about how she finds out who he is and isn't is really an extraordinary tale. You know, those old guys, people, you take Harper Lee and, even, well, that whole group, there's a whole group of Southern Gothic writers. The South is a really fertile place for the telling of stories, just because it has such a unique slice of Americana. And of course, going back even to the Civil War and just everything that comes from there. So the answer is yes, but I haven't done or thought about a fictional one there,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not a novel.
I've been really looking at Kentucky and Ashland history, for the past 6 or 8 months and trying to come up with something. Of course, he's talking about authors. Of course, Jesse Stewart was,
Right.
right down the river from us. And I remember
Absolutely.
going out to his place when we were kids and things like that, as well as the Trapeson woman, that was over
Mhm.
there. And
Jean
she
Rich-
wrote some things too. So, I visited that house many times. So I think that time of growing up in the 60s and 70s when Ashland was, it was one of the wealthier cities in the country, as far as per capita, with the Ashland oil and, the story of Paul G. Blazer. And if you could bring him in as a character in a book, somehow, what an amazing man. And so I guess, yes, as short as that answer was, or as long as that answer was, that's a short answer. We're definitely thinking about it. And
Yeah.
definitely learned a lot about Ashland.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Ashland tragedy?
No.
It was three kids were murdered in 1884. And it isn't, Google it. It's an amazing story. It went on for several years. The military was called in, and there was a group of people on a train that were shooting at these a steamboat as they went down the river. And actually right there where the Ashland boat docks are, they opened up on the steamboat. The guards in the steamboat opened up on just the crowd, on the river.
Wow.
Killed 4 people, and some of them you would know. Some of them names you would recognize.
Yeah.
Amazing story.
There's
That's
a,
kind of what got me onto the thought of some kind of novel in
sure,
that.
there's the beginning of a novel right there.
Yes.
Sounds
In
like
cold blood, right? That's what Truman did. He went to the little
Yeah.
town,
right.
and
Yeah.
it would be narrative nonfiction.
Yes.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
would be amazing story.
Yeah, it would. Well, I look forward to seeing what comes next from your all's collaboration or independently, either one. Tripp Splatter was an amazing character, and I hope he continues to try and solve mysteries. Um, I look forward to seeing that. And for those of you all who haven't picked up the book, it's named Conflicted, and it's a Tripp Splatter novel. One of you tell us how to get that book so that the
You can go
reader,
on to Amazon. You can go on.
Amazon.
Yeah, you can go on to Amazon, whether you're in England and you get it on Amazon.uk.co, or whether you're in America or everywhere that Amazon.com goes, which I think is every single square inch of planet Earth. You can get it both, of course, in a paperback. I actually put a copy here because I'm giving a few away. So this is it right there. It's a beautiful cover. It's a funny thing. We did the cover differently than the original time. Other authors out there, if you didn't like that original cover, it's very easy just to switch that cover out and put another one on. And of course, we have it on ebook today, Kindle and all that, which is just isn't it amazing? If you can read from a tablet, which not everybody likes to, but still, yeah, that's how you can get that book.
That's super. Well, thank you all both, John Nyer and Steve Eggleston for joining us from your homes in England and Decatur, Georgia. And that'll do it for today for this episode of Chapters on Armstrong Television. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you all one more time on Zoom before this pandemic ends. We'll be here, and we hope you will too. In the meantime, stay safe, stay masked up, and join Armstrong Television for the news and views that impact you. Thank you so much.
Connect with Chapters through email. Write to lp4@zoominternet.net. Chapters has a Facebook page at Armstrong Chapters. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. All Chapters episodes are available on YouTube. Visit the Armstrong Neighborhood channel on YouTube and look for a playlist of all the Chapters programs.